And for the record, I was saying before I so rudely interrupted myself, I was saying for the record, what was I saying? No, I'm going to come out and watch that shit to remember. Come on, don't get that stoned. Eating my neck right now. This is more about treating the situation if you're dealing with it. What's scary to me is that when I go shopping or I'm out in public or even visiting people that I know or don't know sometimes, I can see, I know the symptoms so well of Morgellons shit that I can see it like immediately on people. I see the symptoms that I've gone through over the last 6-7 years, and I see people, especially the grocery stores where it's hard. I see people and they're fucked up. They look worse than I did when I was at the worst then. And I'm thinking to myself, how are you even walking? Why are you out in public? How can you function? How can you be in the store in here going to do your thing and like barely making it down the aisle or something, or just obviously in major fucking distress? Because I can tell by the physical symptoms, and then I can immediately go by their gait and the way that their expression looks on their face, and combine that with the physical, signs and symptoms of Morgellons. And okay, I went to the doctors a few times. They didn't have any answers for me. They wouldn't even speculate as to what it could possibly be, even though there were several physical signs as well as what is described as inside type of feeling, how it affects your thinking and your all that stuff. The doctors they don't care about that. They can't tell you nothing unless they get your blood and then they run some tests. Give us your blood, we'll run some tests, and then we can't do anything without your blood. Get the fuck out. You've been studying medicine for thousands of years, keeping records, I would presume, from around the whole world of different phenomenon and different ailments and disorders that people have developed for centuries, and yet there's no database you've compiled that where you could just put in 2 or 3 physical symptoms and maybe combine that with a variable or something that's possibly imaginary, and get an outcome of a short list of what modern medicine has compiled over the centuries and to tell you what it is. They don't have that capability. I guess they're just not that good at record keepers or something. Either that or they're just not very innovative and they don't know how to pay attention. Maybe I'm a super genius at paying attention. I don't know. Because I learned in a matter of 5 to 6 years things that they never even figure out, supposedly, just by being aware of sensations and what's going on in my immediate environment. I mean, would you pay attention to your immediate environment to that degree? And you kind of get a load of what's being done in real time to you directly by, not necessarily some guy in the bushes with a fucking radar beam fucking gun. No, they don't need that. They're putting 5G everywhere. They've had this shit going on for years anyway. The nanoparticles are antennas in your blood. Your blood is you. You are your soul, if it resides anywhere in the body. I don't think it resides in the body. I think it resonates in the body from its source. Like there's a resonance effect, and that's in the body, the resonant, the reflection of the soul. So the body is in the physical world, but the soul is somewhere else. That's probably good. Anyway, it's your blood is where the you that you think you are lives, is in your blood, with all of its memories and all of experience that has since you were born. Those memory crystals or whatever, they exist in your blood. Your blood's like a very special fluid, says Rudolf Steiner. It's a colloidal. What do they call that? They got special names. It's a colloid, though. It's a colloidal mixture of, of a lot of things. And it comes out to a very complex specificity of a frequency. So anyway, back to treating it. I don't know if it's visible. I should turn it on. That would be smart. No, it wouldn't be, because then you see really how messy the place is. Okay. I'm talking to myself. Whoa, that's bright. Probably see it. Runs up one side of my neck. Hey, this is adjustable. Oh well, hopefully it's not too good. Runs up one side of my neck. Down the jaw. Straight to the earlobe. Around all through my ear stuff is, and it's a whole back head, like upper lobe, and especially in the yeah.
By lightning something maybe and across and assume it's shrink. Signs of normal sign of aging. It's getting old, like 6 years ago, I talked to my mom, and she wasn't paying attention very much at the time to me, as far as that goes. Just that, everybody thought I was crazy. And, I was totally lost. I made me lose my train of thought thinking about that. I love my mom. She's great. But, yeah, anyway. Toxicity. And, it doesn't take a super genius to go, well, gee, if my problems are the result of toxicity and a fungus that's building up and growing inside my body that's in my bloodstream, and I'm breathing air that's filled with crystals of metals that are tuned antennas,
and I exist inside of my blood, at least the I that I think is me, you know, the identity in this world with your name and stuff and your memories. If it's anywhere, it's a frequency, and it's in your blood, and your blood is a colloidal mixture of, you know, all kinds of things. There's metals in there too. Probably need more copper. You know, copper's gotten a bad rap as far as the spirituality world a little bit from Enter the Stars channel, and you know, he responds to my messages and stuff too. I'll give him all kinds of credit too. I love his channel. I'm not going to argue with him about copper, but he thinks copper's bad. He thinks it's like, but he doesn't like specifically blame the metal itself. Although it seems like from all his videos, he's got the take that it's definitely being used in psycho-spiritual type of ways, like, you know, to affect humankind. And I found copper stops this fungus wherever you put it on your skin, and if it turns green, that's a result of it encountering that fungus. And what I've noticed is, because it doesn't always turn green on me. I've worn copper a long time, and when I first started, it was hard to even wear it. It had to, even on a perfectly smooth piece of copper, it would cling to your skin, and even if it was loose, it would feel like hairs were there and they were hooked to it, and it was ripping them out when you moved it. And there wouldn't be. You could look and see there wasn't, but it felt like there was. And I noticed, you know, a lot of, I've noticed so many effects of little subtle things like that it would have to write a book to put them all down or something. One of the first things I noticed is when I was drying off with a towel after taking a shower or whatever, or being at the river, the towel, you know, just pull it without any extra resistance added, and as it went over certain areas of my skin, it would have a certain resistance, and then in other areas that resistance would just go away, even though I was pulling around the same angle basically. So it should have been, you know, a smooth transition or the same, but it wasn't. And then so I pushed and put pressure there, and then I really noticed it, like the line area. The towel would drag, or in here it would drag, like it didn't want to slide across my skin. And once I got over that line area, it would ease up and move easier, as if there was something they couldn't really see but was there, coming out like little hairs maybe, and catching the fibers of the towel and keeping the towel from moving across. Even though the hairs that are there are so fine and soft, that shouldn't be an issue, but yet there it was. Happened. It's a real thing. And so that made me look a little closer, and it just, there's so much to it, I can't even do it justice right now, so I better not try. But, yeah, they're there. And when I started first doing this years ago, I had like a Bic lighter, and my skin was so sensitive to just get this close to the Bic lighter, and it was like, it's burning me and shit. And the first few times the flame actually touched any of the hairs, a blue flame front rolled across my arm, up my shoulders, down over my head, down my side, that looks like natural gas, like when you light a gas stove. A wide blue flame front, and it just rolls right over the top, and I had to go over my face everywhere. And it doesn't really do it so much anymore because I've gotten rid of so much of it. My forearms aren't swollen and purple. The throbbing on my wrist, where they say, "Oh, you're taking your pulse." And, you know, that's what my aunt said one time. I'm like, yeah, I know that's where they take your pulse, but traditionally in medicine and throughout all of common knowledge in my entire life, doctor would put his thumb or his fingers there so he could feel for your pulse and then count it on a clock. 15 seconds and multiply it by 4. That's how it's been. You know, go watch Quincy. Anyway, but that's she just like, well, that's how you take your pulse, and I'm like, yeah, but it's not supposed to be, you know, 3 inches wide area that throbs up and down and is darker, you know, slightly darker than the rest of the skin that you can just visibly look at. You don't need to feel for that, and that's not normal, and it's a newer phenomenon. I guess nobody noticed. It's kind of like, you know, a lot of things. Why does anybody doesn't, people don't notice jack shit. They seemingly don't care. Oh yeah, Hey, you know what? All the indigenous species of birds that were singing and tweeted and made nests and stuff that ate the slugs and the snails and the bugs that used to live around here before they disappeared too. All that shit's gone now. Oh, that's terrible. Oh, I'm on my TikToks. Oh, that's great. Remember there used to be seagulls that lived everywhere in this area, even though we're 100 miles from the coast, because it was so moist in here, and they liked it. They'd be in the soccer fields, and I'd go to school in the morning. They're all gone. I did see a seagull the other day. It looked like it was beat up in a back alley, and just woke up and was like staggering home. It was all scraggly looking and dirty. I think it couldn't fly maybe. And the seagulls have left. But we got crows, so we got a giant crow population now, and a giant crow population with a very strange pattern. If I got any natural type of gift skill, it's for recognizing subtle patterns. But there was never that many crows here. In the past, there were crows, of course, not in huge numbers, and they weren't quite so harassing. But I did have a crow in 1985, because I was 15. In 1985, I was sitting in the backyard of our little house on 4th Plain, 64th Avenue, and under a cherry tree, working on my Triumph Tiger Cub 250, trying to get the damn British piece of going. And unbeknownst to me, there was a crow up in the tree on a branch directly over me. And I've been working out there for at least 10-15 minutes, and 15 trying to figure out what I'm looking at and not break anything. And I sit back from it for a second, and I'm like, what am I gonna do? I don't really know what I'm doing, and then everything, I can't seem to see anything that looks obviously wrong. And right then, a big crow shit, nice and red and white and black, with eating lots of cherries, hits me on the top of my head, over my eyebrow. Luckily, it didn't get in my eye. Hit my cheek right here, corner of my lip, and my chin. Big crow shit. Hits me right in the face. I'm like, you motherfucker. I calmly got up, walked in the house, and I got my BB gun. And the crow didn't even move when I walked in. He walked away because I was nice and calm. And then he cleaned off some crow shit, got my BB gun, and came right back out and was calmly walking up to the cherry tree, and the crow jumped off the branch and flew away. It's like, you motherfucker. So anyway, crows. That was 1985. There were some crows around, and the one I had encountered with did fuck with me. Fuck crows. It's crow season. Now there's shitloads of crows. Thousands. Not necessarily all in one flock at once. Murder, as they say. One murder at once. One murder at a time, but crows in huge numbers. And they have a pattern to when they come out and when they don't come out. It's not, and they change it up too. That they'll disappear for days or even a week at a time. You basically won't see any crows. And that tends to be when the weather's nicer, when it's clear and they haven't sprayed into a fogland. But then the crows come out when they spray heavily as well, but not always. I mean, it's a pattern, but they'll reverse the pattern after a little while for some reason. Maybe that's what's going on. Anyway, when they spray heavily, there's generally crows out in huge numbers, squawking their heads off all day. And when it's nice out, they don't tend to be out as much. But not always. Sometimes when it's nice out, they'll come out in huge numbers and squawk their heads off all day. And it's kind of strange, just how many crows there are. And I think since I've been watching the crows pretty closely for about 3 years now, I've seen one dead crow It looked like it got hit by a car or something. It was in the road. And that's the only dead crow I've seen. So, like, where do crows go to die? I'm kind of wondering, you know? You just don't see them. I see a crow feather here and there, you know, they lose a feather or whatever. But, I don't see the crow. Anyway. Like in the 80s, it was reported that their remote control cockroach, if anybody remembers that, they took a cockroach, they took tiny wires into its brain, and they didn't, make the cockroach. It wasn't, an artificial cockroach or a GMO. It was a GMO'd cockroach, you might say. They took a special breed of cockroach and they wired into it, and they didn't have to control its balance and whatever. They could just give it the impulse to go forward, and it would go forward. And it was like a little mini tank, just a remote control cockroach, and they could put a little camera on board, see what it saw, and hear what it heard, and all its sensors. So that was in the 80s. So why not, theoretically, using that same interface technology at a more advanced level that we have now, use it with higher form animals? Does it not make sense that they would have got there by now? And so instead of having to make robotic remote control insects in swarms, or which I think they do have those, but that's slightly different. But they could just interface that with birds, and so if they want to, or conceivably, locusts. Let's go there, right? NASA put in their memo that was leaked or accidentally posted for a few days in 2001 the term co-opted insects. And I take that to mean, not nano-robotic insects, but they found a way to control the minds of swarms of insects, and can use those in combat or against the population, or for complete and total full spectrum domination of the entire societies of the world. And if you have that kind of technology to control insect populations, you can basically you could shut down everything in the world if you wanted to. You could make it so nobody could go outside their door, and then they wouldn't be okay inside their house either, unless it was hermetically sealed and they had all the provisions that they needed to last for quite a while, right? Because you can control the bugs. It's just that simple. And then that's biblical sounding, swarms of locusts and frogs and whatever. If you can control those type of animals, then you can, then you would be you could convince the world that it was God doing it, because they're already so religious anyway, a lot of people. And that's a great control method, right? Because who'd want to control the world anyway? That takes away spontaneity, and conformity is just bullshit, That's a bullshit ideology. Try and go at oblique angles so that the heat will, because it kind of wraps around the surface as it flows over, and so it gets hot, but it's less likely to burn me. I haven't really burned myself once, except for when I've touched the metal parts of things, like little lighters or whatever. I've never just burnt myself. My reflexes push me away before that happens. And I'd have to try to burn myself, really. I could, if another tenth of a second, and that would have burned me, but it didn't. I came to finally trust that reflex action was. Can I even see this thing? There you go. No. There we go. Let me try this. I'm retarded. So that reflex action works. I just had finally, like, well, I'm either gonna burn myself or I'm not, right? And I got to get the areas that are most sensitive is where the stuff tends to grow, like the inside of your elbow. And there's super fine hairs there. Those aren't hairs. Those are nanofibers. Those are antennas that are connecting to the 5G to read your vital statistics and monitor your brain waves. And they feed that directly into a computer that has a simulation of you in it, and all the new information that comes in about your life experiences and how your body and your mind, your brain waves and your physiology react to those things. They create a database of your personality and your behavior, and it's reflected in those statistics. The computer can analyze it, of course. So basically the digital image of you is getting a real-time feed thanks to the nano antenna that are flowing through your bloodstream and the 5G interactions. The nanoparticles are GPS enabled and Wi-Fi capable. Each one. And we're breathing billions of them a day. An hour probably. On some days. So if you think about it, frequencies, antennas. I mean, it doesn't take a genius to look into how radios work and see the resonance of the antennas at the sending and receiving. They resonate the same frequencies. They have the same information on them that's being put out. So, that's easy enough. Nobody's going to dispute that. Every piece of metal is an antenna. Nobody's going to dispute that. Wavelengths are tuned, so like the length of the metal, if it's a whole rod of metal for an antenna, a length is going to resonate at certain frequencies better than others. Nobody's going to dispute that. Nanoscale is not any exception to that rule. So even a 6 nanometer length particle is on par with a cell. It's smaller than a cell of a human cell. I mean, any cell in your body, it's smaller than that, and it can slip right into them and just hang out, and it doesn't want to come out because it's toxic and it's positively charged relative to your body, so that makes you negatively charged to it, and that's why it's toxic. That's why toxic things are toxic. The electricity doesn't allow them to leave. If you can create a condition where your electrical charge matches it, at least temporarily or closer to it, then it will begin to let go, because like charges repel, and that's one of the best ways to get rid of the toxicity. There's also another phenomenon going on which I could probably talk about right now because I'm experiencing it, and that's like static electricity. Charge builds up on points. That's why Tesla coil's got the round ball on top with no rough edges and no perfectly smooth, because charge will build evenly on it that way. If there was even a little pinprick on there that was up off the surface, the charge would want to go there. It forms or it moves on the corners and edges of things, if there are any. In transformers too, when they do the windings, they need to be sure the wire is coated evenly, properly, and does not have any nicks or scratches on it, because that will build charge and cause it to burn out. Okay, well, these nanoparticles are antennas tuned, and they can be electrified through a wave, perhaps a microwave in the millimeter wavelength. God, where's my focus going? I think an airplane's coming. Because when it started to get my dimple here, there's usually an airplane flying slowly over within a minute or two. It used to be like 5 minutes before it would get here. I could sense it that far away, but now it's not quite so far. Okay, where's I now? Electrified. Shit becomes electrified. Now I know the plane's coming, so I just heard a can over there expand and change its Fuck. Okay, well, I guess I'll get back to that point because I'm starting to lose it now. Oh, corners of things. The charge builds on the fucking corners. And like on a Tesla coil, you see, or a spark gap. I've made several spark gaps using a capacitor from a microwave oven and a dimmer switch, a triac dimmer switch. There's all kinds of things if you want to make one. So I've played with sparks a lot. So charge builds on the points of things. And this nano metal, if your body is trying to get rid of it because it's rejecting it, well, the immune system does some known things with these types of metals. It's been studied and observed and cataloged for a long time. Nobody's going to dispute that. And so it builds under your skin. You will put it up under your skin a lot, which really gets it into your hair. And one of its techniques of your immune system is to grow the offending toxin out of the body if it can get rid of it no other way. It will try and grow it through your hair, and that's why your hair changes color and changes texture, and you begin to have skin changes, is because of the toxic buildup under your skin in the plasma fluid between your muscle sheathing and your skin and in the hair follicles, I have determined from my research. I add that because I'm not giving medical advice or telling anybody what to do with any of their conditions. I'm just describing my conditions and showing one of the things I do. Okay, so that stuff builds up there, from my estimation, is the antenna connecting to the 5G, is nanofiber, so it's so thin of a strand of fiber that it's invisible to our eyes. We cannot see it. It's only visible quality. Well, it has a few visible qualities, though. Things that in large mass amounts of it forming at the surface and outward cause changes in the skin, in the hair, and that is visible. But, the question then is what's actually causing the changes in the skin and the hair, right? So this is what I'm saying it is. It's the fiber. It's the fungus. The fungus weave. It's like a fungus that grows, and as these nano is present and aligned, I don't know if it's a natural fungus and it's using the particles as drawing them up as it grows, or if it's completely orchestrated by magnetic frequency, which it probably is. If you've watched things being manipulated with sound waves in 3D that can lift and move, small things around, it's completely viable concept to use waves to assemble things. And particles, given that if they're electrically charged, have a positive and a negative, will automatically line themselves up with each other in a long chain if they're electrified. That's nobody's going to argue with that. We're breathing them by billions and trillions a day right into our bloodstream, which is where our soul resides, which is us. If it's in us, it resides there. If it's not in us, then it resonates there. But everything, our minds, our thoughts, our memories, it's in our blood is where it's kept. And that's why the witch doctors want your blood. We don't know. Give us your blood and we'll run some tests. Let us inject you with some of our stuff in your blood. Here you go. Now you'll be healthy. Don't forget to get your fluoride treatments, right? Let's go get some fluoride and some vaccines, kids. Then we'll be healthy. Boy, we're going to have great lives. Right here. Up that line on the side of my neck. Before that line became visible, like with the redness to it and an obvious color distinction between sides, it was still there, but it wasn't visible. The skin, when this line or whatever, when it first started to become visible, it wasn't visible. You could see at the right angle of the light a drier area on my skin. It looked like a dryness. You could see just a texture change, but there was no colored to be seen as a change. And it was in the same places. It slowly occurred to me like it's always in the same spot, because it wasn't really visible. And as it became this distinct line, it became more and more visible, and I started having more and more issues with health related that don't have to do with the skin. They have to do with my breathing and my joints and my lower back and my neck, like, things you would think were unrelated to a skin condition, but they're definitely tied together. I think that's the front of my immune system's response to expelling it out of my skin and my hair, and I'm helping that process along exponentially. And that sizzling sound, whenever I hear the sizzle, that's when it's getting shit. Doing it just a minute ago. And it just seems to sprout directly. It feels like it's coming right out of the bones. Like I won't doubt that toxic nano is in the tissues of our bones. It's in our spinal fluid. And so when the signal hits it and then the antenna particles align, they're going to align from wherever they are. If they're in your spinal fluid and they're in your joints and they're in your joint fluid and they're in your bone marrow, then they're going to want to align in there and create a resonance of their own inside that cavity. And then that's going to combine with the other resonances in the outer layers of your body, and it's finally going to get to your skin, where it's going to give you an overall frequency, and you'll ping like a radar blip, except it'll be a nice three-dimensional ping with every little nuance traced, of your bloodstream, of your nervous system structure, of the shape of your body, and down to your fingernails and eyelashes. Nanoparticles are small. They coat everything, and they ping out that signal that can be picked up by the 5G. It's you on a computer screen somewhere. It doesn't have to be on a screen, but it's in the computer, doing everything you're doing, reflected there, thanks to modern technology. Boy, humankind has come so far. It's almost hard to believe that people thought up this system. And first of all, why would they? A human who was also a human wouldn't really want that. No human would really want that. Even if they were super interested in science and technology and trying to discover new things, they wouldn't want to put in place this type of system if they were a human. Only a non-human would really want to put in place something like this. Or a human who was absolutely a maniacal, evil piece of shit. And which apparently there are there, so that goes into the whole different question. Are these humans? Are we dealing with reptilian entities, or are these aliens from another world, or, in modern conspiracy terminology, alien connotates, stars in a globe, solar system, and other planets and whatnot, and aliens being completely different, unrelated to Earth races. But in the more traditional sense of the term, aliens are immigrants that are illegally in the country. And so that implies from Earth. So what if aliens are really aliens? Because we're not on a spinning ball, and that's provable. I mean, that is simple freaking physics to anybody who cares to actually learn physics a little bit. I mean, you don't even need to learn it from a book. You learn it from a book, you're going to get 90% of the truth. And the very subtle points of things are going to be skewed by the authorities who they know it, but they don't want you to know it. And so it's been going on a long time, since, the days of the Renaissance, even before that. Pythagoras was probably involved. But anyway, now I lost my point again. So I think I better just end it, because I'm getting a whole lot of sizzle off my left arm here. It's stronger on the left side than it is on the right side. It's like whatever the shit grows, the weave, the 5G weave, or the fungus that's interfacing with it. There's a spark with that one. There's a spark there too. Sparky. But right where my wrist would throb with the black is, I can just feel the concentration is really high, and I'm really sensitive there to it. Like my hand's starting to go numb. Hey, I got some smoke though. Wait a second here. I've gone this far, might as well give another 2 minutes. Okay, how many times can you burn the same hair? That's what I'm wondering. Because it just keeps on going.